It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z Garcia.
Hey folks, today we are taking a look at the expansion to Legacy, the Testament of Duke de Crecy 5 families. In this one, you are going to be given several modules. You can combine those as you see fit and introduce them into the base game. And as usual, since I'm going to be talking about the expansion, I will not be teaching you the base game, but you can go see a different video and check that out if you need to. Otherwise, let's take a look at this one and see what it introduces to the base game. The expansion has 4 different modules, 5 families, birth events, patrons, and a solo variant. And you can mix and match those however you want to, except the solo variant you can play if you're playing a multiplayer game. I'm going to be showing you what each one of them does, from the simplest to the most complicated. The very, very easiest is the patrons. You just mix in the patrons to the cards that came in the original game, shuffle those up, and give everybody one at the beginning of the game like you've always done. They are just more variety. That's really all they do, and that's it for patrons. Now, let me get the solitaire variant out of the way before I talk about the other 2. The solo variant includes these cards here, and you are going to be shuffling up the ones that are families here, which we'll be taking a look at these families in just a little bit in the 5 families bit of this expansion. You shuffle these up, put them on the table somewhere, and you are going to make a fan from these cards so that the values show like this. Let's see if I can do that. There you go. And they each say something, okay? And then you put a token of any unused color here on the 0. Then every time every few rounds, you're going to reveal one of these family cards, and quite simply, they look favorably upon some actions you take and unfavorably upon others. And whenever you do a favorable action, this moves to the better side. Whenever you do like that, whenever you do something unfavorable, it goes the other way. And then whenever every few rounds, again, you check where this is and you take the actions. These are bad, these are good. That's pretty much it. Nice, simple, clever. This could have been a little track, I guess, but it works, you know. And that's it. That's the solitaire variant. Now, the birth events, to set that up, they tell you to take out the 10 complication at birth cards that were originally in the kids deck here, and then you are going to shuffle in 20 birth events. Every time you would flip over one of these, you can tell from the back if it is one of the original cards or one of the new birth event cards, because their backs are different, as you can see there. And so this one you would flip, and then you read the card out loud. You know, you do whatever it says you do. So this one, for example, it's a birth event. Press gets wind of a birth. You draw a child, and then so you would draw this child. Okay, it's a boy. You may allow reporters to be present at the birth. If you do, you gain 1 friend, but lose 1 honor. If you don't, you deny the reporters and must lose 1 diplomat from your hand if possible. So that's what these do. They give you some kind of option, typically a nice thematic option, to contend with. And you can choose which one you do. If you would draw one that says draw a child and there are more, you just get rid of those. Those are out of the game. So that's what they do, and they mix up, again, a little bit the flavor of birthing new kids. They give you a lot of different new things that could happen. And then lastly, the big one is the 5 families. And to do this, you are going to, besides all the regular setup, you are going to give each family, each player, whatever deck of cards here they want. That's going to be their family. And then all of these tokens, that depending on who you get all the tokens that would fit your family. Okay, go with your family. And so these have a lot of different actions on them. Sometimes they are simply cards you can trigger from your hand, and they give you some sort of power. Sometimes they are relatives or friends, if you would. Sometimes they're even attachments that you would attach to a faction, to your own player board, rather. And they do something on your player board. Let's see if I can spot any of those, like this one here. You attach that to your player board, and it modifies one of your own actions. But the interesting part is how these go out and what it is they do. These are not your deck. You will typically not be utilizing these yourself. The idea is, every time after you do the income phase, let me drag the board back in here so we can take a look at that. Where's my little pawn? There it is. So every time that it's a round and you do the income phase, everybody's going to get some money before you move on. So after you make money, everybody's going to, from their own little deck of cards here, they're going to shuffle that up. You're going to draw 3. You're going to take a look at those 3, and then you're going to offer, in turn order, okay, going around the table, you're going to offer one of the cards to any player you want to, the one card. If the player looks at it, they say, yeah, I really like that. That's a great power. They're going to give you as many envelopes as it says up here in the top corner. In this case, 2, from their own family. So if I offer this, I'm playing blue. If I offer this to red, they're going to give me 2 of their envelopes. They keep the card. It's the next player's turn to offer something. If that player didn't want it, I offer it to someone else. If that player also didn't want it, then I offer it to the last person, whatever. If no one wants it, I get it back, okay? And so that's the way these work. And those envelopes that you are getting or possibly giving out can be used in-game on this brand new board here. And what this board lets you do is on your turn, before or after you take an action, you can place some tokens on this board to take one of the powers. You can play a single token on this one or this one. It takes 2 tokens to go in the middle, 2 powers here, and then 3 on the last 2 there. When you do go here, you leave the tokens there so that round, no one else can go there. And they give you varying things. Also, by the way, if you play on the ones that require 2 or 3, they have to come from the same family, the tokens. So, the first 2, very simple. I play here, it says ask for a friend. If I played red's token, I ask them for a friend from their hand. They have to give me one. Over here, ask for money. They have to give me 1 coin. That, again, the player whose token I'm just now putting here, whose envelope I'm putting here. If I'm doing 2 here, this one says I get to use an occupied action space on the board. So I get to add my own pawn there as well, and then I mark that. The bottom one here, take another action right after the first one. Lets me go twice in a row, right there. And then these 2 over here, which are very powerful, seeing as to how they take 3 of those envelopes. This one says you can use an action on your player board, meaning you can use an action without a pawn. That's before or after you take your own normal action. That's very strong. And then this one down here, take an additional action pawn from the pool, and then you could even use it right away, right, if you take this one. And so that's what the families do. And that, pretty much in a nutshell, is everything that comes in the 5 Families expansion. I was never a super huge fan of the original game Legacy. I always enjoyed it. I thought it was a fine game, but nothing that bowled me over. But the expansion here is very nice. It's well done. I like that the different modules are all interesting, all worked well. The little one with the new patrons, that's just simple. I don't know if they... it's like almost not even a whole new module. It's a few cards you shuffle in, that's fine. The main thing here anyway is the 5 families. But before I get to that, I do want to say those birth events, I think, was a very smart idea. Not only does it remove from the children deck the one thing that I think a lot of people originally complained about when the game originally released, which was the birth complications, And even in the rule book, they said, we understand if you want to remove these, that's fine. But there was a lot of contention there, So I think it's very smart for them to say, okay, we're going to change that idea with a new idea that not only works very well, gives the players choices, but I found it to be kind of thematic. I thought it was really neat being able to draw the card and then kind of read what's going on. It tells you a little story about what's happening in your family. So I like those a lot, the new birth events. The 5 families is really neat, and it achieves what they set out to do, which is kick up the interaction between the players, and that works well. You really do have to be careful that you're not handing someone else the game when you offer those cards out. In one game, I definitely found myself regretting having offered someone a card first, when later on in the game those cards came back to bite me. So Interesting dynamic there, and this is excellent. I love the new board. I love the powers it offers. I like that when you take a place, you leave the tokens there so no one else goes there. Just clever, interesting dynamics. Really enjoyed that it kicked up it feeling not so solitaire. Besides the worker placement part, which you always had to fight with other people with, it adds a nice amount of interaction. Now, on the flip side of that, it really adds a lot of time, which I was not super thrilled with. It basically adds a whole new phase, which you do 8 times in the game, and it adds easily, this is let's say you're playing with 4 people, and it takes, let's say, 3-4 minutes for everybody to pick those cards. You're adding at least half an hour to the game. So be aware of that. If you're not worried about the time investment, then no big deal, don't worry about it. But I thought it pushed it a little bit, a little much. I wish there was a faster way to do that, maybe. But I can't think of one, and I do like what it adds, but it makes the game a little long, so it's both this expansion for me, because again, I was not a super fan of the original game. It's both adding something I'm really digging and taking away time, and basically creating more time investment so that I'm not going to want to play as often because it's a little longer now, Having said all of that, though, there's no denying that the expansion is successful and works really well. I enjoy everything they added to it, really. Even the solitaire ideas are interesting. I think it's cool how they found a way to have the families from the 5 families be involved in the single player mode of playing now. So that's cool. And everything just works well. So there you have it. That is 5 families for Legacy.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.